Welcome to the Marijuana Pioneers Show. This is like our third or fourth show where we go in depth about what's going on right now in the marijuana legalization process in the US and in Canada. And today I have a real treat for you. If you guys don't know Randy Shepley, you're about to get to know him in the next few years. He will become one of the main figures in the marijuana industry in the US. He's one of the top ranking officials at the Marijuana International Corp, known as the MJIC. It's a private company. It does a lot of the large trade shows. It started out as a fund, so they own like 15 companies that they have shares of, and they own other subsidiaries that are private. And he has been at the marijuana industry for a while, and it actually starts with a very unique personal story. And so today we're going to talk about how early we are in the marijuana industry. I want you to get a taste of just how this is in its infancy. And as an entrepreneur, as an employee, whatever you're looking to do in this industry, there's so much room for growth, for wealth, for fortune making, and for entrepreneurship. This is very early stage, and as we said, Wealth Research Group is on the cusp of the marijuana industry. And I want to introduce you guys to Randy Shepley today. Randy, how are you?
Good. Thank you very much, Lior.
Look, I'm very glad that we got you here, because you give such a unique perspective into the industry. You run some of the biggest trade shows, so you get to meet with the politicians, with the entrepreneurs, with the public. You get to see everything. And just to start off, I want to get more of a feeling of why did you migrate into this industry? Obviously, you did become involved in this in your 20s. What how did you get started in business, and how did you get started in the entrepreneurship world, and what moved you into the marijuana industry?
Well, actually, as a teenager in the late 60s and early 70s, I actually was involved before I was 20, but in a very different way, and got married young, had a family, ended up having a very successful kind of multiple careers working in the telecom industry and working with venture capital and angel investing. I actually was an officer with a public company that went public in '98 on the NASDAQ, and we went to a $2 billion market cap, and have built huge distribution networks. I think I've built 2 companies and multiple product lines from nothing to $300 million a year in sales in telecom and in software and technology. And after that, while I was doing some work, I was doing work with venture capital on a different area. My wife got cancer about 11 years ago, and basically walked in and quit and didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that I couldn't stay on the road. I was a road warrior, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to do this. And as her cancer progressed, she was operated on. She was fine, sleeping problems and everything else. I'm like, well, I don't know. What am I going to do? I'm a 52-year-old retired exec, but I remember that when we were young hippies growing up, we would smoke pot and eat and fall asleep. And it was the best thing for sleep. So I started researching again and saying, there's got to be better ways than this Ambien that basically makes you like a zombie, and all the other drugs that are out there, and realized and learned that, a lot had been learned about cannabis to that point, that, hey, it has good medicinal uses for it. So now my question is okay, so 52-year-old retired executive living on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago, where do you get marijuana? When I was a kid, it was easy. You knew, and actually it was fairly easy. I grew up on military bases. It was even easier there. So I started researching on YouTube. I ordered seeds, and I started growing in my closet. And and then that ended up becoming a toy room for my granddaughter. So my wife said, you got to get that skunky stuff out of there. But at the same time, my son had moved over to Michigan, and he had gotten a medical card over there. He's a professor at Michigan State, and he had gotten a medical card over there for digestive disorders that he has. It helps him with, with irritable bowel. It helps with all kinds of different things, stomach pain. So it was easier than to get. So I started kind of becoming and saying, wait, there's medical cards and stuff. I didn't know that. So I started just researching the industry. Went to some people that were in the industry, and during that time, I built a software development company that builds white label crowdfunding portals. And we built portals for broker dealers, for private equity groups. They're basically just what we call deal rooms. We built one for the cannabis industry called Canna-Funder. And I realized that to really build an audience in crowdfunding, the best way to reach people was you needed to do more than have a website. So we started running trade shows. We started the Marijuana Investor Summit and Business Expo in Denver of 2015. And we've since then run 2 more shows successfully. We've run multiple workshops. Our show in San Diego, we just actually sold out the exhibit hall there with over 100 sponsors. So we're now moving into convention centers. Got a chance to meet some of the most interesting, knowledgeable people in the industry. It's unbelievable because we run sessions, our workshops at these expos. It's more than just having a trade show floor. We provide top quality education and speakers, and we run a workshop, a track that we've run now 3 times called the Science and Medicine of Cannabis. And in fact, we've had quite a few speakers in from Israel. We had people in from Israel last year in Las Vegas for a workshop called The World of Cannabis, where we brought people in from Israel, Colombia, Canada, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, to get a lot of ideas on the different markets. So I've been very fortunate because of those, to gain tremendous insight and experience into the industry across the United States, the states in this country, and then all the other countries and what they're doing. It's just been an amazing ride that's just beginning.
Sure, and okay, so transitioning into today, 2017, you've seen what happened, was just happened in Canada, where they're very pro marijuana, and they're gonna probably legalize within a year. They want to do it by July of 2018. How early is this industry in the U.S.? I mean, talk to me about the kind of capital that is going into the industry right now, as opposed to what it can be a decade from now. And I'd like to know the extensiveness of the troubles, the challenges, and the type of bureaucracy that you got to face in this industry, because it's so early, as opposed to a regular industry. I know one of my partners just came back from the largest conference in DC, and he said the industry can't even swipe cards yet. The merchants, they can't swipe debit cards. They have to use all cash. This is very grassroots. It's like the computer industry in 1985. It's just getting started. It's very exciting. But I want to get your take on this, because you get to speak with politicians, entrepreneurs, fund managers, etc., and also with people. One of the amazing things he told me was that in the show, they asked the audience who owns a marijuana stock, and out of the thousands of people, you had like 2 or 3%. And then they asked who wants to own a marijuana stock, and virtually everyone has raised their hands. So there's so much room for education and for growth in this industry right now. I just want to get your personal opinion on this.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting when you said marijuana stock. I was picturing, well, there's stock, S-T-O-C-K, and then there's a stock, S-T-A-L-K, which is the plant itself. And everybody in this industry would like to own the stock that's the plant itself as well. So there's a little bit of play. We actually also own the marijuanaindex.com, which is a algorithm that will show you on a daily basis how the North American stocks are trading, the Canadian stocks are trading, the U.S. stocks are trading that are companies related. And we actually, on that, we typically get 3,000 to 4,000 people every day visiting that index looking at public stocks. So there's a great interest in the investment part of it from, the private levels of the high level investors. We're seeing more high net worth people getting into the industry, more family offices. We do not yet see venture capital getting into this industry very much. There's been some minor investments on the technology side at the venture capital level. So the whole thing with the banking and the investing, for many of the venture capital and many of the private family offices, they can't invest in cannabis just because of their rules, that the way that they're set up as a fund. They have rules about dealing with high risk or pornography or alcohol or anything that's illegal federally. So they can't. However, the people that are not part of those funds can. So I'm going to go back to a couple of things you said. The first issue on banking is it's not necessarily true about the credit cards. If you go to Colorado, almost every dispensary you go into in Colorado will take a debit card. The issues are in the states where it has not become as legal yet, and you can't get the local banks supporting it. So in Colorado, there's local credit unions that have come out in support and said, here, come bank with us. You can do it. On the credit card processing side itself, there's an issue because the credit card processors will end up shutting it down regardless of what bank you're in. So ATM debit cards are very, very popular in the states where it's legal. Credit cards and credit card transactioning through Visa, MasterCharge, American Express become very difficult. Banking the money itself, there's a lot of banks that have already reported to the federal government. The federal government has told the banks, I won't get into all the Dodd-Frank and this rules and that rules and the Rohrabacher Amendment, but the net is that banks, it's okay for a bank to bank with a cannabis company as long as they tell everybody that they're doing it. And as long as they do the reporting for knowing their customer and knowing where the deposits are coming. That said, there's still a lot of cash being passed around in this industry, just a tremendous amount, because all the states are not adult use legal like Colorado. So the first thing is understanding what the regulations are. The reason that more money has flowed into Canada is not necessarily the market size there. There's only about, I think, 40,000 patients registered in Canada. It's because the banking has been easier to deal with up there and the stock exchanges have been easier to deal with. So a lot of investing has gone in up there. Whether that'll pay off or not, it'll be interesting to see. Canada itself is a country of, I think, about 35 million people. California is a state which is also already legalized recreational, and people will be able to get recreational January 1st of 2018. It's 38 million people and is a larger economy than Canada.
Yeah, it's got to be the king.
Yeah. In some ways it is. I kind of, I tell people, I said, it can be a little deceiving how things will roll out. So in the United States, it's up to every state. Each state is able to create its own laws, its own regulations, and its own rules of how they're going to regulate this. And each state has done it very differently. Some states are very, very pro small business. Some states create oligopolies, like the state of Illinois did, where there was only going to be 20 licensed cultivators in the whole state. And then they create a high cost and a high barrier of entry for people to get into the business. So an example of that is in the state of Illinois, your first year license. So the 100 and some people applied for licenses and paid over, I think it was $50,000 or $60,000 just for their license application, whether they got one or not. Plus they were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to prepare their applications. 20 were awarded, and those people had to pay a $300,000 license fee their first year as a cultivator. So in those cases,
and obviously they did. So
yes.
This means that they see the light at the end of the tunnel that justifies these costs.
Yes, and I know where a lot of that money comes from. I can't say because it's not necessarily public, the people that have invested in it. But there was a lot of money that went into the state of Illinois in particular. There's a lot of money that's going into Maryland right now. There's a lot of money that's gone into other states. Whereas
as far as transition, though, Randy, right? As far as the transition from illicit to legal, you got to have these irregularities, we can call them, and people taking all sorts of angles.
Yep.
Well, it can't be otherwise. But there, on the flip side, we see less violence where marijuana is legal. We see,
correct.
Yeah, and you just said they bankrolled 60,000 times 100 just on applications. That's got to be a great advantage for the state of Illinois for their treasury.
You know, it is, but there's going to be some issues with it. It actually encourages a more viable black market.
Sure.
Because the cost of doing business is so much more for being legal, right? And there's not that many patients. Illinois, the problem in Illinois, and I'd actually fortunately stopped my brother from making further investments into it with some friends here, is that Illinois is very restrictive on how you can get a patient card. And I'm going to give you the difference. In California, you can go online and do a patient interview and get a patient card, and it costs $100. You don't have to register with the state that you're a patient. And you can get a card for almost an unlimited number of reasons, with the biggest ones being that you have chronic pain or nausea. Chronic pain, by far, is the biggest one in states that allow for chronic pain. So you can get it from if you're a woman with menstrual cramps, if you have headaches, if you have tennis elbow, whatever that pain is, you can get a medical prescription for it. In Illinois, they have chronic pain, but only if that chronic pain is caused by stage 4 cancer, by Crohn's disease. So it significantly limits the pool of people that can get those patient cards. At the same time, in Illinois, you have to have a recommendation from your treating physician, and they've got to sign about a 9 or 10 page document. And as a patient, you not only have to register with the state, you have to be fingerprinted as well.
Interesting. So what I'm trying to understand is, how does Big Pharma not lobby to the federal government to make this legal as soon as possible? It looks like they're going to miss on all these early years, and what are they going to do? Are they looking to move their facilities into Canada? Or are they just going to be left out? It looks like
no. I actually don't think that that's the case at all. I think Big Pharma comes from pharma research to actually take what we know, that there's some miracles of medicine in this plant. I mean, I know that inherently. I've seen the children that stop having seizures when they get enough CBD into their system. I've seen, from my own case, the pain control that goes on with this. Athletes coming off of opiates and going on to marijuana when it's administered properly. But nobody really knows how to make that happen consistently and everything. This is a strain, so it's more right now it's naturopathic medicine. So I think that the pharmaceutical companies would love to get into it, but they won't until it's federally, and then you'll see the product becoming much different than what is still being done as a recreational or natural homeopathic cure for a symptom. So if it truly can create cures for cancer, I think the pharmaceutical companies would love to be able to work with it. Their hands are tied, though, because of the federal rules.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking you. Why are they not putting, billions of dollars worth of lobby pressure, legal pressure, drafting initiatives, getting this petition, getting their PR people to on social media? Why are they dormant? Or are they not dormant? I mean, it looks to me like the opportunity, just on the face of it, to turn an illicit market that already has such proven demand into a legal market. And correct me if I'm wrong, just by making it legal, so many people that just consciously or as a way of life do not want to break laws will participate in this. As soon as it's legal, the floodgates will open.
Yeah, I think it's because there's some other, multiple reasons for it. Understanding the pharmaceutical industry as a whole, just because they come up with another cure for something doesn't necessarily they're going to mean that they're going to make a lot of money off of it. And in fact, many of the things that marijuana, so if you're a pharmaceutical company and right now you manufacture opiates that you make billions of dollars on, are you anxious for marijuana to get legalized so that you no longer can sell opiates?
Right.
No.
It's like nobody wants to invent the tire that doesn't need to be replaced ever.
Correct.
I remember Volkswagen, the German manufacturer of cars, made a car in the 70s, the original Beetle car. It was so good, it had no maintenance, no problems. They had to take it off. But, I mean, they couldn't make money off of the supplies, the reserves.
Right.
So you're saying it's kind of the same thing.
it's the same thing. So what they're going to replace is something that's hugely profitable for them. And will they be able to do it? Probably. Will they want to make sure that it's controlled? They're also going to have to go through FDA approvals. So you're not going to be able to, in the United States, go out and sell a bag of marijuana and say this is a cure for cancer. You're only going to be able to do that if you've done a lot of research on it, and if you can put out an extremely consistent product that can be proven to do exactly what you're stating that it can do, and it's proven safe. So I think that the real potential for the people that are lobbying, it's the same thing. Why isn't the alcohol industry lobbying to have cannabis legal? If you think about it, they're very much alike. Alcohol was at one time not legal, and then it was made legal. How does that all play in? I would think that they would be more interested in it, but it's again that same thing. It's at that state level. So a lot of the people that are playing in this industry right now to build a brand or a strain that becomes the Johnny Walker of cannabis, or the Budweiser of cannabis, they're hoping that those companies do come in and roll them up and expand them across many, many lines. But right now, the great thing is that as an entrepreneur, so I talked about how expensive it was to go into Illinois. Now I'll give you the reverse. You can go to Michigan, and Michigan has 220,000 patients today. Illinois is now at 17,000. So a lot more patients. They're much more liberal with their rules. They have any community, whether you're in Ann Arbor, Lansing, or Timbuktu, Michigan, any community can approve granting of a license to grow marijuana, manufacture products out of marijuana, or distribute. And that's basically what a dispensary is. And they're limited by state law. They can only charge $5,000 for the license application and the fee.
So why aren't more private companies profitable? I've talked with fund managers. I've talked to people on the ground. It looks like it's only at the edge of profitability right now. There's only going to be a few companies this year publicly traded that are going to be making profits for the first time. Why is this? This is a very lucrative industry.
Well, for the first thing, the public companies don't do what we call touching the plant. So the public companies are also limited. So even the public companies in Canada are limited to a very small market. Remember when I told you that the market size really legally there's only 35,000 patients, and they're still competing with a very, very vibrant black market. So it's not easy to cover a whole country and have 30 companies each selling to 1,000 different patients of their own. If you start to look at the numbers. In the U.S. side, a lot of the companies that are public in cannabis were penny stocks that just became cannabis companies just to say they were cannabis companies. I find that very few of them have real businesses that go with it.
Now, Randy, what I'm very interested in is how early we are in terms of entrepreneurship. Do you see entrepreneurs coming up with new ideas and just with better ways of doing everything from online sales to distribution to the products itself to the delivery systems? How for people listening to this and they want to get in, they want to start getting involved in the industry, either as a business builder, an entrepreneur, or just an employee. What states will be good for people to pack, if they have the ability to pack and go to, or do this online? I mean, where do you see the opportunities in the next 2-3 years?
So I think if you want to, let's take a look at two different areas. What we call touching the plant, which means that you cultivate, you manufacture, you're in a dispensary. So in manufacturing, they call it MIPS, manufactured infused products, versus the ancillary, which is lighting, air conditioning, that sort of thing. We can, with those companies, you take a look. If you want to be in touching the plant and you want to learn the business, go to Colorado or Washington. They're the current two largest legal markets today.
So basically, as a newcomer to the industry, what you suggest is for people to do what Warren Buffett did initially. Just look for that mentor, go and work for him, even for free, or for a symbolic fee, for a symbolic salary. Learn the ropes, learn the business, then take that knowledge, copy it to a different state, a different area, a different whatever.
Yes, exactly. And if you want to get in early into an industry that's going to be huge, is California. Although realize that in California today, the way that the laws work is very, very laissez-faire and it's very difficult. But within 8 months, everything's going to be regulated there. They're going to be applying for licenses. So California is probably, you could be like the Beverly Hillbillies and pack it up and go to California. And one of the biggest things that's out there is the processing and making oil. So you can get into oil processing, you can get into cultivation, you can get into a dispensary, you can make edibles, you could get into vapes. There's technology groups all throughout California, as there are in Colorado and Washington. If you go to Meetup and just search cannabis in an area, you'll find meetup groups with 1,000 people that are interested in cannabis that get together and talk about what to do on a weekly and monthly basis.
The industry is also is it largely based on young millennials, or do you see people from all age groups?
Yeah, all age groups. I really do. It's a little bit of everything. It's now I would say that it's more common in the black markets to find a lot of the Generation Xers and stuff. But even then, you go to California, there's been people that have been in this industry in Humboldt for years. In fact, families, grandparents, you'll hear kids talking about their grandparents growing marijuana up in Humboldt. So I don't think it's restricted to any age. I think that you find a lot more people on the black market side at the younger age. And I think you see a lot more people getting into the industry now with a lot more credibility at the ages of 30, 40, 50, and even a few old people like me at 62.
Do you see public companies or private companies starting to get radio ads, television ads, newspaper space, start to market brands, create a brand awareness, same as like you said, the liquor business and the cigarette business do?
Yeah, so think about it as more of the craft brew industry and the wine industry than the large brands. And much of that has to do with the fact that to be legal, you have to get into the legal industry within that state, and all the rules are very different. And just because you've been successful in Colorado, for example, there's many brands that have not been able to move and start making their product in California because there's micro economic climates there. So what you find in San Francisco, you might not be able to even find the product in San Jose, which is still all the Bay Area. And then in Southern California, you've got 22 million people that live, from the Santa Barbara area down to the San Diego, the border of Mexico down there. And you will find many smaller brands. It's very difficult for them to create too large a footprint for their brand because it's very hard to get distribution, to be out in public, to do advertising. All the things that you want to do for brand exposure get limited on that side. So you're finding a lot of people able to. The bad thing is it's very difficult to get really big. The good thing is that creates a lower barrier to entry for other people to get in because they're not having to compete if they want to be a chocolate company with two chocolate companies that dominate the market like Hershey's and Nestle.
Interesting. Going into what can happen in California, January 1st, take us through the difference between today's market, where it's not regulated, and what would happen when you turn that switch January 1st? How many new customers will come into the legal market? What are we expecting here? And just give us like a projection for the next 5 to 10 years. How big will this industry become? How dominant? How important is it to the U.S. economy?
So I think it's very important for the economies all over, and all of the states here. Job creation. This is, the interesting thing is this is a blue collar industry. It creates a lot of jobs in agriculture. It creates a lot of small jobs in kitchens and manufacturing centers. It creates a tremendous amount of retail jobs. So it creates and adds a lot of jobs to, it broadens the tax base significantly for just not only sales taxes, but, income taxes. Instead of a guy selling drugs in South Chicago. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And Randy, these are not jobs that are easily outsourced.
Correct. It's not like you're going to do it. And by the way, not only are they not easily outsourced, but since it's illegal to ship marijuana across the state line or a country line, they have to be done locally.
Sure. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah. So I see it as a very, very a tremendous environment for anybody that's an entrepreneur for all kinds of things, whether it's on the technology front with building a technology that fits because it's a state regulation of how a dispensary maybe is able to advertise, to, being able to just create, you're a farmer and you've got crops and you know how to grow something and you've got a greenhouse and you want to put cannabis in the greenhouse or grow it outside or however you want to do it. It creates wealth in the country and it creates a tax base. I see it as a very, very, very good positive thing that a lot of states will be looking at, and I've already looked at it. It's a big reason for it being legalized here.
And so, what are your thoughts on the California market come January 1st, 2018, when the light, when it switches into a more regulatory environment, legal? Can this turn the industry? Can this be a pivotal moment for the industry as a whole?
I think it's a pivotal moment right now. I think that the biggest pivotal moment that can happen is federal government decriminalizing cannabis. Until then, I think that you have to look at each state as its own microenvironment of how to do business within that state. And there's great opportunities that are out there all over the country here in the United States, and you'll see it up in Canada. I don't know how Canada will roll out, so I really can't say that. But I just think overall, it's a great place to be, whether it's technology with software and apps that manage things and manage cultivation and manage dispensaries and security systems. This plays across anything. And people say, what kind of job can I get in cannabis? I say, what kind of job do you do in the industry? Are you in operations? Then you can get in operations jobs. Are you in accounting? We need accounting jobs. Are you in sales? We need sales. So from a job standpoint, all the same functions that are done in every industry are being done in cannabis. It just creates more jobs.
Sure. It basically has the satellite business that any other retail product has. It's a commodity, but it's sold retail. So you've got everything from the manufacturing side until the consumer side.
Correct.
Consulting, advertising, legal, accounting, it just goes on and on. Where are the fattest margins?
I'd say currently right now it's probably in the processing of the plant into oil.
What is the oil used to? At my house, we can use hemp oil for salads, etc.
So oil is actually used. You use it in edibles. You use it in smoking and vape pens. It's the fastest growing part of the industry is the edibles and infused products piece of it. So if you look at the studies coming out of Washington, and they're readily available online and everything, you can see the growth of certain types of products. But the reason that the infused products are so high is, just to give you an example, a barrel of oil sells, for $51 a barrel. It's 180 pounds. 180 pounds of marijuana oil would sell for about $900,000 or more, depending upon the quality of the oil.
So, just to make this straight, a barrel of crude oil sells for about $50, and you got marijuana oil selling for $900,000. You said.
Plus, depending upon the quality, it could probably, if you were doing what's called pure distillate, which is what's used for a lot of the manufacturing processes, that barrel of oil could be $1.5 million to $2 million.
And when they produce this oil, that's where the fattest margins are right now?
Currently, yes. I believe that the largest revenues are still in the plant itself, just selling the bud and selling flower for people to smoke. I think that most of the major markets are still over 50% of the market is in just people buying the bud. So if you were to look at the sales numbers in California or Colorado or Washington, but if you take a look at the fastest growing segments, those numbers are going down. When they first went legal, it was probably 70%. They're getting closer to 50%. So less people are buying the pure agricultural product, which you would roll in a joint or smoke in a bowl. And they're buying products that they can vaporize, that they could take in pill form, that they could take in capsule form. So the oil can be mixed, for example, if it's decarboxylated, which means that it's been heated so that the plant is active. If you eat raw cannabis, it's not active. You get no feeling out of it. It's got to be heated up. It's called decarboxylation. So if you decarboxylate the oil, mix it with coconut oil and put it into a capsule, that's an edible. You can do that. You can make it into brownies. You can make it into cookies. People do what are called sublinguals, strips in the mouth. Another type of way to do it is a tincture. And a tincture is just made, if you think about, have you ever made olive oil that's garlic flavored olive oil? By leaving the garlic sitting in the oil, the garlic infuses the oil. You can do the same thing with cannabis. And if it's decarboxylated, you could just put that under your tongue and you can use oils and different types of oils that way. So those are all growing faster. Part of that is due to the smell of smoking cannabis itself. Some of it is because people that don't smoke anything don't want to put that smoke in their lungs. So they want to get the cannabis in another form or fashion. So all of those ways of taking this plant and making it in a way that you can get the cannabinoids out of it and get the THC out of it and the terpenes out of it, those are all being experimented with, and it's a tremendous opportunity for people who do that. So some of the leading research that we see coming out on the CBDs and terpenes is coming out of Israel. Some phenomenal work that's coming out there.
What took so long to the industry? I mean, can we give credit to politicians for taking initiative here, or do you think they were boxed into a corner and kind of they were shown the amount of revenue, the tax, the sales tax, the state taxes that they can take in every year by legalizing this? And just on a personal note, do you think that there's a risk for the youth, that there's a risk here that if this becomes legal, the old mantra, if this becomes legal, everybody will start doing it. Our streets will be filled with with stoners, etc. Do you buy into this? It's so old and redundant right now, but tell me your personal opinion. How will this reflect community life, youth, addictions of all sorts? I believe that this will, by these being legal, less people will smoke the harder stuff, the stuff that really gets your brain to another stratosphere, and they will choose to do this more disciplinedly. You'll have more awareness. What do you see? What are the facts that are now being taken care of by the legal states?
Well, I think that a big part of it is just the aging of society. You're in in the 50s, marijuana was looked at like, oh my God, it's worse than heroin, right? But by the time, my generation, which is now becoming the senior citizens of today, most of us smoked in high school, and enjoyed it, and then said, okay, well, we're kind of done with it, and experimented with it. And as people have gotten, I think the more socially conscious and more conscious of what it really does, I think that people have just become that much more accepting of it. And so part of it's just been the growth of the industry itself and the growth of the world in being able to accept things, whether, we're getting past racial biases and we're getting past, the biases against, homosexual marriage and same-sex marriages and all the different things. I think as a society, we're just becoming more accepting of the things and that people are different. And as long as it's not dangerous and causing danger to other people, why should one group of people be able to stop it for another group of people?
Sure. So what do you see going forward with regards to crime rates, in local communities and the youth?
So it's interesting. My nephew is a public defender in Colorado, and so is his wife. And we've talked about it a few times. They love it. They love the fact that they don't have to, the court system's not bogged down with a bunch of marijuana cases that are sometimes just because they couldn't find something else to bust somebody for. And it's also keeping it out of the youth hands, because if you're a licensed operator, so let's take a look. You're either selling drugs on the street corner in your black market, or you're a licensed operator and you're making money and you're dealing with the state. If you're a licensed operator and you get caught for selling to a youth, you could lose your license and your livelihood. If you're on the street corner and you're selling to a youth, the odds are you're not going to get caught, and you make more money and you just sell it to the youth anyway. So by taking it off the street corners, we're taking it out of the youth's hands, typically. That's the same with alcohol and cigarettes. As long as it's, once it gets regulated, it actually means less access for them at a younger age. Not impossible, because we all know that, I think I drank beer before I was 21 too, but.
Life is life, and then there's always going to be problems and challenges,
yep.
and naysayers and yes-sayers. So we're progressing in the right direction here. Finally, to close, where can people kind of check out more from the MJIC, and more information about the industry? People want to research. People want to get to know more about what's going on right now. I know you and I talked about the fact that I'm going to be coming over to the conference in April in Los Angeles. Kind of talk about what's going on in the industry, what's going on with your websites. Where can people check out more information?
Well, there's always the ability to, so much information on the web, right, about what's going on in the States all the time, that it's just the news. Being able to have access to that type of information for everybody is a big thing. There's job sites in the industry where you can go search for jobs that are specific to this industry now, and figure that out, so you can see those types of opportunities that are going on. You can go to workshops. Just start Googling what you're interested in. There's workshops in what they call terpening, which terpenes are what make lemon smell like lemon and make lime smell like lime, or pine smell like pine, or marijuana smell like marijuana. There's different terpenes within the different marijuana strains. So all of that is available. There's schools with Oaksterdam and THC University and whatever the other ones are. I can't even think of them. So there's schools that you can, go and look for schools for, I want to train to be a bud tender or something. It's just becoming more and more common to the point where we actually had a U.S. Senator that is a Republican speak as our keynote speaker in San Diego that uses marijuana medicinally and is a strong supporter of it, and is a member of, there's a committee for cannabis in Congress, or cannabis committee in Congress. I can't remember what it is, but it's basically a group of congressmen that support the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. So all of that's kind of available online. Do some research, hit some of the different shows in your area, look for the workshops, and the education's out there now.
Randy, thank you very much for taking the time today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the call.
The marijuana industry is still in its infancy. Trade show entrepreneur and fund manager Randy Sheepley is one of the pioneers of the business, and this was a great opportunity to learn from him and catch up with him. One of the most important conclusions of the interview is that some states offer a much wider range of profits than others. This is important especially for those who want to move and have the ability to relocate in pursuit of business and employment. Marijuana jobs are not going to get outsourced since it's legal on the federal level. Instead, they're going to get much more professional and sought after. This is creating a solid framework for those looking to become part of the growth. Randy wisely sees this growth into satellite businesses as well. A satellite business is the same way that Mark Twain used to think of the gold rush in California. He said during the days of the gold rush, you should be in the picks and shovels business or in the jeans business, right? Because everyone needs that. So the marijuana industry needs satellite businesses. They don't only need growers, distributors, sellers, and distillers, but they need online computing, banking, IT, support, management, engineering, technologies, sales personnel. The list looks the same as other retail businesses. With regards to, and this is important for you because if you're a professional at some capacity in other industries and you see the growth opportunity, then look at Meetup, look at the local forums. There's so many ways for you to join the industry. With regards to investments, especially with publicly traded companies, Wealth Research Group has used the marijuana index to conduct due diligence on every single company. And we've also approached many management teams personally, and I can tell you that there's a very solid group of people running a handful of companies. The rest are very, very premature right now, risky, speculative, but there's a few that are core companies that will have profits in 2017. This is going to be a very pivotal year, and going into 2018, when California fully legalizes, you will see a flood of profits coming in. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining us. Go to wealthresearchgroup.com/cannabis profits to check out our work and our research about this industry and the potential that it offers early investors.